Title: The Inmate Who Saved His Guard. A true story of redemption behind bars. The inmate who saved his guard. Before we begin, if you think you could survive a night inside one of America's darkest prisons, hit that subscribe button, because tonight's story might just change how you see mercy forever. The wind outside Huntsville State Penitentiary howled like a wounded animal, clawing at the steel bars and flickering security lights. Inside, the night shift dragged on, slow, heavy, haunted by the low hum of fluorescent bulbs and the distant clang of metal doors. It was 2:13 a.m. when Officer Mark Ridley began his rounds. Mark wasn't a rookie. He'd been working corrections for nearly 17 years. Thick shoulders, a jaw like carved stone, and eyes that had seen too much. He'd dealt with killers, gang leaders, lifers with nothing left to lose. But even the toughest guards had their limits, and Huntsville had a way of finding them. That night, something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it, just that creeping tension that crawls under the skin when the air feels too quiet. The kind of silence that means someone, somewhere, is waiting for something to happen. As he passed Block D, he noticed it, a flicker, barely noticeable, of movement behind cell 47. Inside that cell was Eli Turner, inmate number 30429, serving a life sentence for armed robbery gone wrong. 12 years in. Clean record. Kept to himself. Read more than most professors. No fights, no infractions. The kind of inmate who didn't belong there, at least not anymore. Mark slowed down, shining his flashlight into the cell. Eli was sitting on the edge of his cot, reading a worn-out copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. He looked up, eyes calm, almost knowing. Couldn't sleep, Turner? Eli smiled faintly. Sleep doesn't come easy when you've got eternity on your hands. Mark huffed. You and me both. He started to move on, but Eli said something that made him pause. You might want to check the boiler room tonight, Officer Ridley. Mark turned back. What? Eli closed his book. Just a feeling. A feeling. That word echoed in Mark's head long after he walked away. Prisoners always had feelings, rumors, setups, distractions. But something about Eli's tone, it wasn't manipulative. It was warning. By 2:45 a.m., Mark decided to check the boiler room anyway. The corridor leading there was cold and narrow, concrete sweating moisture. As he descended, the hum of machinery grew louder, the rhythmic pounding of pumps and steam valves echoing through the pipes. He flicked his flashlight around. Nothing out of place. Then a sound. A click. Not mechanical. Metallic. Human. He turned sharply and froze. 3 inmates stood at the far end of the corridor. Faces masked in makeshift bandanas. One of them held a sharpened piece of metal, a shiv fashioned from a broken spoon. Don't move, Ridley, the tallest one hissed. Drop the light. Mark's pulse spiked. His training kicked in. Keep them talking. Wait for backup. But deep down he knew backup wasn't coming, he hadn't radioed in. He dropped the flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, illuminating their faces. He recognized one, Marcos Valles, serving 30 for second-degree murder. Violent, impulsive, the kind of inmate who waited years for a moment like this. What's the plan, Valles? Mark asked quietly. Marcos grinned. Freedom, officer. And you're our ticket out. Before Mark could react, one of the inmates lunged. A flash of silver. Pain exploded through his shoulder. He stumbled back, his hands slick with blood. They moved in fast, years of pent-up rage unleashed in seconds. Then chaos. A deafening bang ripped through the air, followed by shouting. The flashlight beam jerked wildly before hitting the floor. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. And there he was, Eli Turner. He wasn't supposed to be there. His cell should have been locked. But he picked the lock using a piece of wire from his cot's frame. He'd been watching, listening. Without hesitation, Eli swung a length of pipe into one attacker's ribs, sending him crashing into the wall. Another rushed him, knife raised, but Eli caught his wrist, twisted, and the blade clattered to the ground. In the struggle, Eli shouted, Mark, get up. Mark staggered, bleeding, dizzy. He saw Eli take a blow to the face but stay standing, driving his knee into Marcos's gut. Sirens began blaring overhead. Someone had finally noticed the commotion. By the time backup arrived, it was over. 2 inmates down. 1 unconscious. Marcos Valles pinned to the floor under Eli's weight. And Officer Mark Ridley, barely conscious, bleeding out beside the boiler. As medics rushed in, Mark's gaze found Eli's. The inmate's lip was split, knuckles bruised, eyes tired, but steady. Why'd you help me? Mark whispered. Eli leaned closer. Because I wasn't supposed to survive my first night here either. Someone saved me once. I owed a debt. Then everything went black. Mark woke up 3 days later in the prison infirmary. Shoulders stitched, bandaged. The air smelled like antiseptic and metal. His first thought was of Eli. The warden came in, stern and controlled. "You're lucky, Ridley. Another inch and you'd have been gone." Mark nodded weakly. "Where's Turner?" The warden hesitated. "Solitary. Standard protocol after an escape attempt." "Escape attempt?" Mark's voice sharpened. "He saved my life." "Doesn't matter," the warden replied. "He left his cell. That's a breach. You know the rules." Rules. Mark had enforced them his entire life. But suddenly they didn't feel right. He'd seen monsters in this place, men who'd kill without blinking. Eli wasn't one of them. He'd risked everything to save someone who never looked twice at him before. As the warden left, Mark stared at the cracked ceiling. His mind wouldn't stop replaying that moment, the flash of the knife, the sound of Eli's voice cutting through the chaos. He couldn't shake one thought. If Eli hadn't warned me, if he hadn't come, I'd be dead. And yet, the man who saved him was now sitting in a pitch-black cell, punished for doing the right thing. That night, Mark signed a formal report clearing Eli of any wrongdoing. He included every detail, the warning, the attack, the rescue. But when he tried to submit it, his supervisor stopped him. "Let it go, Ridley. The brass won't approve it. Makes the department look bad." Mark clenched his fists. "So we let him rot?" His supervisor sighed. "You've been here long enough to know. Heroes don't last long in this place." Mark said nothing. But deep down, something in him snapped. For the first time in his career, he wasn't sure which side of the bars he belonged on. 3 days later, while making his rounds, Mark stopped outside solitary. Through the small square window, he saw Eli sitting on the floor, head down, eyes closed. No books. No light. Just shadows. Mark knocked lightly on the door. "Turner." Eli opened his eyes. "Still breathing, I see." Mark gave a faint smile. "Thanks to you." He slid something through the tray slot, an envelope. "You didn't hear this from me." Eli hesitated, then picked it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an official transfer notice, and signed. Mark's handwriting scrawled across the bottom. "There's more going on here than you know. Don't give up." For a moment, neither spoke. The hallway buzzed with the hum of flickering lights. Eli's voice broke the silence. "You're playing a dangerous game, Officer Ridley." Mark nodded. "Yeah, but maybe it's time someone did." Eli's faint smile returned. "Careful. This place eats good men alive." Mark turned to leave, the echo of his boots fading into the dark. He didn't know it yet, but what he had just done, one small act of defiance, was about to uncover something far worse than a prison escape plot. Something that would shatter everything he believed about justice. The inmate who saved his guard. The night shift at Huntsville was always cold, but lately it felt colder. Word traveled fast inside those walls, faster than truth, faster than justice. Everyone knew what had happened in the boiler room. 3 inmates down. 1 guard nearly killed. And 1 prisoner who'd stepped into the chaos like a ghost, saved a man who once looked at him like a number, then vanished back into the dark. Eli Turner was no longer invisible. And that, in prison, was dangerous. Mark Ridley sat alone in his truck, parked outside the penitentiary fence, chain link glinting in the floodlights. He was off duty, but he couldn't stop thinking. About Eli. About the file he wasn't supposed to see. About the warden's cold stare when he'd asked too many questions. He pulled out the folder from his jacket. Inside, copies of disciplinary records, incident reports, and 1 confidential memo stamped internal review, suppressed. That memo said everything. The attack in the boiler room hadn't been spontaneous. It was planned, orchestrated by someone inside administration. A setup. But why? And why had Eli known to warn him? Mark's hands trembled slightly as he turned another page. It listed cell assignments and staff schedules. In the margins, someone had scribbled a series of numbers. A code. The same code Eli had once scratched onto the edge of his cell wall. Numbers Mark had dismissed as nothing but inmate nonsense. He grabbed his phone, entered the numbers into the department database. Coordinates. They pointed not to a cell but to Storage Bay 9, an unused wing sealed off years ago after a fire. A place that officially didn't exist anymore. Inside Huntsville, Eli sat on the floor of solitary, staring at the faint light crawling through the vent. The walls whispered, every breath, every footstep amplified by concrete. Solitary broke most men in days. But Eli had been here before, long ago, in a different cell for a different crime. He'd survived worse. Still, this felt different. He could feel eyes on him, not just guards. Something else. Something quiet. Watching. When the door finally clanked open, he expected another meal tray. Instead, it was Mark Ridley. No uniform tonight. Civilian jacket. Tension in every step. Eli's expression didn't change. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," Mark said. "But I think I finally understand what you meant." He handed Eli the memo through the slot. Eli scanned it quickly. His jaw tightened. So they finally made their move. "Who's they?" Mark asked. Eli looked up. "You think gangs run this place?" "They don't. This prison's got ghosts, Officer Ridley. The kind that wear badges." Mark frowned. "You're saying this was internal?" "I'm saying," Eli replied, voice low, "someone higher up needed a distraction. A violent one. So they let certain inmates, accidentally, get weapons. They were supposed to take you out before a transfer shipment arrived the next morning." "What shipment?" "Evidence. Boxes of it. Tied to old cases the warden doesn't want reopened. Cases that could burn this entire system down." Mark stared, pulse pounding. "And you knew?" Eli's lips twitched, not a smile, not quite. "I used to work on the outside. Logistics. Before all this, I recognized the code on the crates. I knew what was coming." Mark felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Everything he'd believed about law and order, about justice, started to crack. "Why help me?" he asked. "You could have stayed out of it." Eli's eyes softened. "Because I've seen innocent men die in the name of order. You reminded me of someone who once refused to look away." Later that night, Mark walked through the north corridor with his flashlight off. The cameras were dead, a convenient maintenance outage. He reached storage bay 9. The lock was sealed with a new pad. He picked it, heart pounding, then stepped into darkness. The air smelled like dust and old rusted metal. His light flicked on. Dozens of crates lined the walls, marked only with serial codes. He pried one open. Inside, stacks of case files labeled with inmate numbers, sealed evidence bags, photos of crime scenes, but something was wrong. The files were altered. Fingerprints missing. Statements rewritten. And one file near the bottom with a name that froze his blood. Eli Turner. Mark opened it. The crime scene photos didn't match the official record. The robbery that had put Eli away wasn't a robbery at all. It was a staged hit, one that took the life of a local DA investigating corruption inside the penitentiary's contracting division. Eli had been the scapegoat, the fall guy, and the real killers? They were never booked. Mark felt bile rise in his throat. He slammed the file shut just as a voice echoed behind him. "Find what you were looking for, officer?" Mark spun around, gun drawn. The warden stood in the doorway, calm, unarmed, but flanked by 2 guards. "Put it down," the warden said softly. "Let's not make this harder." Mark didn't lower it. "You set me up. You knew Valles was going to attack." The warden sighed. "You were asking too many questions. We needed a reminder that not everyone gets to play hero in this place." "Eli saved me," Mark growled. "He's innocent." The warden stepped forward, eyes cold. "He was useful. That's all. But now he's a liability." Something snapped in Mark then, not rage but something deeper. A clarity that burned cold. "You're not burying this," he said. The warden's smirk was almost sympathetic. "You don't have a choice." Before Mark could respond, one of the guards struck him from behind. The world tilted. Pain flared. Everything went black. When Mark woke up, he was in the infirmary again. Only this time he wasn't in uniform. His badge, gun, and ID gone. A nurse avoided his eyes. "You shouldn't have been down there," she whispered before leaving. He tried to stand. His ribs ached, his vision spun, but he pushed through. Something in him refused to stay down this time. He limped to the mirror, his reflection hollow, eyes wild. He wasn't just a guard anymore. He was a man caught between truth and survival. He needed help. And there was only one person inside Huntsville he could trust. Eli Turner. That night he found a way back to solitary. This time the cell was empty. Gone. The locks weren't broken. The cameras were cut. No alarms. No guards missing. Just gone. Mark's heart sank. On the wall, scratched faintly into the paint, were words that made his skin crawl. Bay 9 wasn't the end. Look under the chapel. He stepped back, dread creeping up his spine. The chapel was the oldest part of Huntsville, built before electricity, before reform. Below it were tunnels used for heating decades ago, now sealed off. He didn't know what he'd find there, but he knew he had to go. Because Eli Turner wasn't just another inmate anymore. He was the key to everything this prison was built to hide.